everyone's like, "Yeah, to go dad," and no one is like, "Why is a flying projectile that close to an infant's head?"
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm Jordan Scott. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. We're coming towards the end of April. Baseball season is well underway. Some of the leagues will be starting up soon. The other leagues, the non-major league baseball leagues, and I'll be making some calls and seeing if anyone has done any sort of improved or upgrade. Improvements and upgrades are not solutions, but I still like to keep track who's doing less, who's doing even a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's all worthy of a conversation. Foul ball safety now started back in 2019. I saw something very disturbing on the news. And from that point on, I made some moves. I made some grand gestures to the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. They did ignore me, which I guess I would expect them to, because I was just some citizen, random guy coming and boasting about how I'm gonna fix the problem, and they don't wanna hear it from me. They still don't wanna hear it from me 7 years later, but after that experience, I started connecting with a journalist by the name of Brendan, and Brendan and I have been together for around 7 years. So over the past 7 years, Brendan and I have paid attention to this issue, very much so. We've met so many people along the way, people that have been affected by the game forever. Uh, Mostly it's a combination of fans that have been injured and their family members, baseball players, broadcasters, some legal minds, some scholarly people that have all came to talk to foul ball safety now. The people that have unfortunately been hurt, their stories are very powerful because once the people learn about these discussions, I think two and the people will be able to put 2 and 2 together and realize those experiences could have been their experiences, and nobody wants those experiences. People, unfortunately, have been hurt seriously and have had the worst loss, anyone could ever have. Erwin Goebel, who I mention a lot at the openings of these recordings, his wife was unfortunately hit at Dodger Stadium in 2018, and she died a few days later. She was in a loge section behind home plate. I think that's one section up. Fortunately, she was hit by a ball, and really, it's crazy that it took more than a year for the Nets to go up, and this was in the middle of the season, or at least towards the end of the season, August of 2018. It wasn't until about Labor Day 2019 till the Nets went up vertically, and certainly the people in that row, in that section, in that seat didn't even have a clue about it until maybe 2019 when it was finally announced. Nobody knew at, Dodger Stadium that in the months of, right the day after or that month of September and October, they had made the playoffs in 2018, that they were sitting in a place where somebody did get hit and died a few days later. And I think once people learn about that, they'll be like, "Well, maybe we should have had some clues," and I think they have a right to be upset that they weren't told that information. It wasn't announced till 2019 when, a journalist, from ESPN, Willie Weinbaum, got a call from the daughter of Erwin Goebel because Willie was doing a report about fatalities in baseball from fans that have unfortunately have experienced fatalities. Her mother wasn't even on the list, and she called him, and he actually attended one of our press conferences. But it's been a long and winding road. Working with Brendan and having these intimate experiences with the families and doing an interview with both Erwin and Jana, and Erwin coming to 7 of my virtual press conference experiences, and Jana coming to 1 or 2 of them, and just meeting people, other people we've met and interviewed, or people who've been blinded in 1 eye, but, 2 people that unfortunately got hit lost the use of their eyes. One of them was my lawyer's client in New York, and she revisited the experience with us. She was very kind to do so, and talked about how it has a generational effect on her family because her son, who was playing baseball years later, quit the game at 8, and I believe he quit because he was making his mother feel nervous, and she openly told me that she was nervous as the 8-year-old was playing baseball, probably what happened to her, and, maybe that 30-year-old boy now is telling his new son if or daughter, if they're playing ball, "Oh, you don't wanna play ball. Look what happened to your grandmother." So, I think it passes down. It has, like, a little bit of a family tree effect that, is not pro baseball. It's, if anything, anti-baseball, and I wish those families will have peace and maybe in the future, they'll see there's a road for their families to jump back on the baseball tracks. I believe that we're still in 2026 and we're still in the dark ages because we're constantly finding new things that occur. I have something on the website called the Less Than 1% Injured Club, and every year there are new people that enter into the Less Than 1% Injured Club. There's maybe 100 million baseball fans. And have there been 1 million people that have had life-altering experiences? I don't think so. But have there been thousands? Yes, there have been. And every year, there's gonna be new people that have a reason, a justified reason, absolute justified reason to say, "Why am I here? Why am I experiencing this situation inside or outside the ballpark?" Because it's not just inside the ballpark, it's outside the ballpark, like the woman who got hit in Modesto, California. People can see the tab at the website Unknown Modesto, and I don't think she'll be coming to the parking lot anytime soon because in a period of 3 or 4 hours in one of these facilities, Modesto or maybe 169 other professional places, just getting started with the colleges. So we'll maybe get into that a little later. But they all seem to be synonymous with either parking lots or joining fields. And why should people worry about where to park their car? And when I hear things like, "That's unspoken, we don't park there," well, people from out of town or people that we have this recording, and Brianna's part of this experience with us. Her child was just 2 years old. What do you tell somebody who's coming for the first time? Those spots are either supposed to be used or they're not supposed to be used. I don't wanna hear stuff about, "That's unspoken not to park there." And even years past, I've been to some of these smaller ballparks, you even hear the sound man making the sarcastic sound when the balls leave the side over the sides, of the window crashing. And yes, it's one or more balls every few hours, one or many balls every few hours that's hitting the pavement or hitting the window, and in this case, hitting the lady's head. So we are in the dark ages. Brianna and I, and just in the last couple of weeks, have been exposed to a few new injuries. Certainly, one from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and one from a year ago. The one from a few weeks ago was unfortunately, an 18-year-old who had his back his back was turned, he was walking up an aisle, and, he got hit in the back of the head, and I think he may have some concussion symptoms, and we're trying to connect with the family. The local news would like to talk with them, but sometimes people just don't wanna come forward. And similar from a year ago in May at Dodger Stadium, I connected with a woman who found us through a network, and she was very kind to do an interview with Brendan and I, and I'm hoping she'll be active and make some good noise around Dodger Stadium. So it's really all up to us to make the appropriate noise, pay attention to the issue, what's happening in your local area. Are you in a situation where there's compromised baseball? Unfortunately, I have a feeling all baseball in all areas are compromised because I want somebody to tell me the one zip code that's got to figure it out inside and outside the ballpark, and then we can model that. But I'm confident because there are solutions. I've been making noise for 7 years. I've been to court in Illinois, and we'll talk to our guest soon because she's got some ties to Peoria. I hired a lawyer, and we went a few rounds in court in Peoria, earned at least got an article in the St. Louis Dispatch from those efforts, and unfortunately, there was a child that was critically injured in that ballpark. Would have the netting my lawsuit wasn't really relative to that particular experience, but at the time I was filing, with the lawyer, there was a child critically injured. It could have been maybe more than a third of the ballparks that didn't have netting all the way down the line. She was further down the lines. Peoria was pretty bad because they didn't even have netting above the dugout. So I didn't associate the child critically injured at Peoria as with the lawsuit that I was filing. That wouldn't be fair. So, but just in court and renting out airplanes, and just a month ago in Arizona, we had the Shohei Ohtani vulnerability. We had for less than $1,000, we had Shohei set up in a outdoor mall. A lot of the Dodger fans come to Glendale, Arizona, and hang out with the Dodgers in the month of March. It's a big thing because the Dodgers, it's cozy, it's spring training. So while they're not going to the game, they may walk around the outdoor mall. And Shohei Ohtani last year in the World Series had a vulnerable moment. You could see he had his hand over his head like he just hurt someone. He had a cringeworthy experience. He had a line drive down the line. So I asked one of the lawyers I work with, can I use this image of Shohei holding his head like he just hurt someone of concern? And they were like, yeah. And I did. So it was set up and people would stop and look at it, probably wondering why does he have this expression, but it was an opportunity for them to take pictures with it and then find my website. We're just trying to keep up with things at Foul Ball Safety now. It's not just the 30 major league ballparks. I've been following ESPN's video from 2019 about the time I started. It shows and demonstrates line drives going in sections that are exposed, and clearly, I've been doing netting reports on their affiliates for a number of years, and even in 2023, there were more than 40 teams out of 120 that still had no netting in a certain section or sections just past end of dugouts. Where you saw this video from 2019, you'd be like, "How would any human being be sitting there 4 years later?" We're still in the 2026, and most of those teams have extended the net some or further down the lines, which is better, but it's not a solution. And then I have to make some calls in the next week when these other leagues are opening up about now. And as of the end of 2025, there was still 30 to 40 cities that still had no netting past end of dugouts where you could see these line drives going, at kids and hitting them. It's crazy. So whether they're making $1,000,000 a year or making $20 an hour, they're strong guys and they hit it 100 miles an hour, and no human being should be exposed to any of that. Brianna, how are you?
Doing great, Jordan. This is a super important conversation. I'm excited to dive into it today and spread some awareness on this topic. So, without further ado, I'd love to invite on our guest host for the day. She is a concerned spectator, lifelong baseball fan, and a mother just like me. Welcome, Andrea Cannon.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Andrea. Very nice to meet
Hi.
you.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yes, yes, we met and we spoke for a few minutes, but it's great that you're on.
Tailing on to what Brianna just said, it's a hugely important topic. I just want to make sure that, since being introduced to you and then the awareness behind this, I'm kind of scared to go to a game, honestly, because I want to make sure that the netting is fully stretched around the park, if you will, and even to be in the parking lot, I didn't think of to be injured just walking to my car, So it's really scary, honestly. I'll always love the sport. I absolutely adore the sport. Grew up watching the sport, but the importance behind safety is paramount. So
It definitely is, and unfortunately, we had a restaurant owner from Miami a few weeks back, and he had, 4 little children, and he said, "I don't wanna take my kid to a game. I don't want my kids to be part of the less than 1% club." And I was like, "Okay, I hear you." I can't really tell people until Brianna or you, Andrea, are told by management, this is exactly where to park. This is exactly where to come in and out. This is where you can go up and get a snack. And guess what? You don't have to worry about being hit. Well, tell me where that game plan is. I don't know of one like that. But you would think
Mhm.
that's reasonable. You would think that would be a reasonable request. If you're bringing a young family, they'll tell you exactly where to park and enter and where to sit and where to go up and have snacks and where to go
Mhm.
back. we met a girl by the name of Alexis. Brendan and I have interviewed, as I was mentioning, some of these victims. She wasn't seriously injured. Another girl by the name of Alexis was, unfortunately. She was 4, but the 10-year-old at the time, she was in New Jersey, and she was just standing on, like, the concourse, these smaller ballparks similar to Peoria. Uh, they're one level, balls easily fly on the concourse where you're getting snacks or go over the side into the lot. Even 20 years ago, it was in my brain that this was an issue because I was in Brooklyn, New York, with a group of people young and old, and we're hanging out in world famous Coney Island. The team is named the Cyclones after the famous ride down the block. You can go on the Cyclone, and then you can go watch the Brooklyn Cyclones. So it's a cool name, Brooklyn Cyclones, and we're standing outside on Surf Avenue, and a ball just comes right out and hits this young person we were with right in the forearm and left a big mark on his arm. We were like, "Where did that come from?" And
Mhm.
that was more than 20 years ago, long before I got started in any of this. So why is that business as usual? And I'd like to prevent that. I believe there are
Mhm.
solutions in every zip code, but it's a matter of just starting the conversation.
I absolutely agree. Just to kind of, and it's a different sport, but nonetheless, living here in Arizona, we have a lot of golf courses, of course, and a lot of
Right.
the owners around the golf courses, they have to replace homeowners. They have to replace their windows often because the balls come flying in their window, And I mean, it's we don't think I've never thought it could be as drastic at a baseball game, but goodness, they're going 10 times faster, at a baseball game the balls are versus on a golf course. So, yeah, something has to be done for sure.
About a month ago, a guy called me up, poor guy, somewhere in Illinois, coincidentally, but I don't know the name of the city off the top of my head. He bought a house near a high school field, and he didn't realize that balls would be hitting his house. And he called me, he found me, and he's like, "Hey, Jordan, any advice?" And we talked for about a half hour. And he says he had been to the council or the community board meeting, and he got snide remark from one of the community board members, like, "Buyer beware, like, if you're buying a house next to a pig farm, you should know it's gonna smell like you know what." But I don't think that's the case because I said, "I disagree with that analogy. You shouldn't settle on what they said because maybe the developer had some clues, and maybe they should have told you that there would be balls hitting your house, similar to, like, the baseball owners. They should have been
Mhm.
telling you, 'Not cool to park your car here.'"
Yeah.
Yes, percentages are against it, but this is no way of running a business of regularly balls hitting pavement, window, or people in head. It's not acceptable, but
Right.
that's the management that we're dealing with. We're still very much into the dark ages, 2026.
I think the image that's been sort of implanted in the public imagination has been one of a family-friendly environment, and there's been a lot of romanticism around the foul ball experience and a lot of push for, feeling the chosen one, and if you catch the foul ball, then you're lucky, and you are very lucky if you catch the foul ball if it doesn't hit you or someone else around you. But
Mhm.
that messaging is so ingrained in a lot of the public perception of the environment at a ballpark or a stadium that a lot of people don't even think twice about the consequences, and it's so bad that when these videos go viral of the dad who's, like, holding the beer and the baby and catching the ball, no everyone's like, "Yeah, go dad," and no one is like, "Why is a flying projectile that close to an infant's head?" You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
big problem. Half of the work is just undoing that and, letting people see behind the curtain of what's really going on and the families that have been affected, and, Jordan's spoken with so many victims, and me working campaign, I've gotten very intimate with a lot of these stories, and I'm a mother just like you, Andrea, and I just feel like it's unfair that I know more. Why do I know more than all
Mhm.
the other parents in America? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And really a baseball fan.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I have a 19-year-old who's gonna be 20. He's on a basketball scholarship in, Santa Maria, California. Nonetheless, he'll be here home from college in a couple of weeks, and I work with a vendor that does business on Chase Field here in Phoenix for the Diamondbacks. So I'm at the Diamondbacks games all the time, and I see the kids come up to our stand and they have their mitt, and the first thing I say is, "Hey, you're gonna catch a ball today?" And that's the ideal of the game. That's the ambiance of the game, right? When the kids go to the game to catch the ball, that's amazing. That's like a dream. And to
Right.
think that my child could be injured, even my 19-year-old, to be injured just coming to a game home from college. And then just for me, just the other day, I went inside and I got Cold Stone and I just kind of walked the concourse, just kind of in the vibe. My dad passed years ago, and that's who I used to go to the games with. And I'm just la la land eating my ice cream, and then just to know at any second now thinking, just aware that one of those balls could come off the field and just knock me out. And it in a way it seems comical, but it's not by any means. It's lethal. So yeah, just wanted to give my input there.
Yeah, Brianna found many, situations last year, and soon we'll probably go back and see if over the last first few months of the season this year, how many self-reported injuries, but we found around 45 self-reported injuries last year on TikTok, similar to the gentleman, the 18-year-old that was hurt a few weeks ago in Seattle. Balls are still making their way over the nets, so paying attention is not what I tell people to do. I think the kids should be able to play patty cake. I believe the loved ones should have their tender moments. I even think it's okay to look down at your phone and do business as long as you're not disturbing your neighbor. People should do what they want. And if, again, when people say things like stay off your phone, we're not action figures. We're not superheroes. We were not meant to defend ourselves from these projectiles. End of story. Even if there's a sign right in front of you by your cup holder, be careful of a foul ball. The 4-year-olds or the 80-year-olds should be able to do whatever they wanna do, all right? We're not there to stare and without blinking, and even that is not a remedy or a preventative measure. It's not satisfactory. We're not getting out of the way. We're just not inhuman. We're not superheroes or action figures, and it took me a while before I came up with that simple phrase, but I believe that's the case, and we weren't there to begin with. Warning, I don't care if they're warning you on every pitch, be careful, pay attention. 4-year-olds are not supposed to be paying attention, and they don't have to. And they should be able to do whatever they want, and we should all be able to do whatever we want. And we should be given exact direction entering the facilities, parking lot, and coming in, and exactly what's what. You tell us where the risks are. I do believe, Andrea, that professional baseball since 1970, when a 14-year-old boy got hit and died a few days later at Dodger Stadium, when there was no netting above the dugout, it was 45 years or so that finally MLB put netting above the dugouts, that it was the responsibility of the team then to tell us exactly what was happening winter after winter after winter about all the near misses that will become direct hits like it did with Allen, and what we're going to do moving forward. And I believe once the investigative reporter starts digging a little deeper, you're going to find out. I could be off. I may not be right, but my opinion is, has MLB treated this situation with sophistication, or has it been their one guy wearing 12 hats at MLB, that this would be one of his responsibilities? I think it's more of there's been one guy wearing 12 hats instead of the sophistication of architects, engineers, and designers that would have a lot to say about year to year improvements and renderings that need to be implemented. But I don't think they'll be able to ever show that, and I think certainly from now till the past, you're gonna find out why did this billion-dollar organization operate that way? And let's go. I hope there's an investigative reporter out there that wants to dig deeper because people are gonna understand that we've been disrespected and we've never had unconditional no strings attached. It's always been strings and conditions attached to the experience. We just never knew about it in a way which would have made us informed. I don't wanna hear about microprint, about or on the ticket or e-ticket that would have said they're making sure they're legally protected. That's what MLB's doing in the bare minimum way. Nobody's gonna give them an A for communication. If anything, they're gonna get a D minus F for the way they've told us about this issue. So, it's really an F minus, but I'm being kind. I'm telling you, it's an F freaking minus. Shame
Mhm,
on MLB and
mhm.
professional baseball.
I agree. What's the reason, can I ask,
Sure.
what's the pushback? Like, I know it takes some of the, romanticism of the game away, if you will. It's funny because I was just
Okay.
watching, Moneyball the other day,
Okay.
with Brad Pitt, and,
Yep.
it's a romantic game. I mean, it's a vibe, right? So,
Uh-huh.
and I know that putting the netting up in more places could take some of the romanticism away. But why won't they? I don't understand. I mean, it's a multi-billion dollar industry. I don't get why they won't.
Again again, as you've discovered for yourself being around the ballpark, the kids are coming, they're excited, people come hoping they're gonna get a foul ball. I was a child. I eventually got a ball about 15 years ago. It wasn't the greatest thrill. It rolled down an aisle, and I got it, and I was on the aisle seat. It was exciting at the time. I actually had one of those free T-shirts, given out at the gate. Sometimes they have those T-shirt days, and I had now a ball in one hand and a T-shirt in the other. I actually tossed the T-shirt. I was like, "I have a ball. I don't need a T-shirt." Like I was kind of showing that I guess I was excited. I was in the moment. I gave away my free T-shirt because I didn't need a free T-shirt. I got a ball. So yeah, I got into the moment. But that being said, yes, even as a guy who at the time, 15 years ago, it was a big thrill, but it wore off pretty quickly. With the younger people, what can we do to make the transition? I think with a little effort, the guy who works in promotion and public relations for the team, you know how many gimmicks they'll come up with $6 baseballs to compensate the lack of balls that may be coming their way? Because part of the romanticism could be potential fatalities. Nobody wants that. So we just have to really commit to the conversation, Andrea. This is not rocket science. There's architects, engineers, and designers that really haven't been on the scene in any one of these zip codes. And if they ever were, they probably have kids associated with those teams or those leagues. And they would probably be like, hey, why should I whip up in a few days? And I'll oversee the, implementation and may cost each ballpark hundreds of thousands of dollars, but who cares? It's billions of dollars. We need to create an ecosystem where everyone knows what's to expect, and if where the risk remains, you'll tell them age appropriate, but let them know there are near misses and potential fatalities on a regular basis, almost like running with bulls. Nobody wants to run with bulls maybe in America, we're not used to that, but some countries, they do that, but you can't bring the little guys. Can't bring the little guys if you wanna run with the bulls. You may have that in your DNA, and as a baseball fan, you may still be in a position where you wanna take those line drives potentially to the neck or to the throat or to the head, but you can't bring the little guys. There's still maybe 30 to 40 cities I gotta make the calls that still have no netting past in the dugouts. That I gotta make the calls in a week or 2 when the box offices are open. They're probably open around now. Some of these indie leagues, some teams in Illinois and all over, Idaho and Montana, I think, has a bunch. There were like 30 to 40 cities that still had no netting past in the dugouts. People can go to Exhibit A1, and you can almost retrace your steps. 49.9% of balls go past end of dugouts. Some go at 20 miles per hour, some go at 100. If a judge sees our work in one of those 30, 40 cities, they would be fair to say, no kid, let alone human being, should be allowed in any of those sections. We're just continuing to make the right noise, I think, and we welcome our guests and their contributions.
There's definitely a lot of layers to the issue, and like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of push for it being a family-friendly environment. We know they go so far as have like theme nights and they're doing all these marketing tactics to bring people in. So if all of a sudden all these protections go up, or the fans might be scratching their head wondering why, or if all of a sudden there's literature or education on this person was blinded here, this person was concussed here, et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of people would be outraged as to why this information was withheld from them for so long and why they were attending games feeling like they were safe when that wasn't the reality. And I say this a lot. I think a lot of parents, if they knew someone was blinded, someone was concussed, someone died in this section, I think a lot of parents would absolutely not let their children be sitting in that section, right? It's definitely a layered issue as to why they're not being so straightforward or just making these massive moves to fix it right away. And then there's also the protection aspect where they are protected legally by the baseball rules. So in a lot of states, even if you do take your kids or whatever, and Lord forbid something happens, you can't really seek any financial recourse.
I bet there's not a lot of data on the amount of parents who don't take their kids to the games because they've heard of these tragic stories and they're scared their kid will get injured. From a financial standpoint, I feel like the MLB, it would be advantageous for them to invest in netting because it's like, hey, we care about our spectators. We're going to put up all of these nets at all of our parks. These are going to be the new rules. And I feel as though maybe like the traffic count would increase, right? Numbers would sell or tickets would sell more revenue. I'm sure they may see a downfall to that, but it could be a good thing for them. So I think it's something they just need to revisit.
You see, most people are coming to the game not thinking they're not safe. They're coming to the game thinking it's gonna be a great day. Brianna mentioned something like if all of a sudden, a system and a transparency and there was agencies and oversights and there was explained why. Like, it's been put up in my mind willy-nilly. There's been one guy wearing 12 hats unless they tell me otherwise. It has not been an independent netting council or internally a team of architects, engineers, and designers. And yes, could they do it tomorrow? I'm sure they can. And it's not the money. It's a matter of maybe they don't want to open up a can of worms all at once. For the greater good, will you damn do it already? You know what I'm saying? It's like, get it done. It's above your pay grade because if, according to my way I think, there's one guy wearing 12 hats who's not qualified. How about that as a concept? And guess what? There are teams out there of architects and engineers and designers. They are qualified. Well, get their asses in, man. It's not the money. Come on. We don't know they make billions of dollars. It could be 50 grand. It could be 100 grand. It could be a million. I don't care what it is, but it's a drop in the bucket. It ain't the money. Please. It's definitely not the money. So, again, we're starting the conversation. We're meeting legal minds. We're meeting medical minds. We're meeting parents. And this is effectively what we want to do on these recordings to start a conversation. And you're contributing to it, Andrea. So we thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it. I love it.
You're welcome.
People just don't think about it, but it's a serious topic. It's a serious subject, right? And unfortunately, to wait until someone is injured, it's too long. It's too late.
Now, I mentioned the child that was critically injured in Peoria, but that wasn't related to the lawsuit that I helped file in Peoria. We were in court in Peoria for a year. At the time, Peoria was the one of 120 that didn't even have netting above the dugout. And it wasn't until the beginning of the 2025 season when they had netting above the dugout. So they were like the worst of the worst offenders when it came to the 120 teams. Because basically what I do every year is I'll make 169 calls, 120 to the MLB affiliates and another 49 to independent leagues, 169. So that's what I do. I've made netting reports. And after that horrific video aired in 2019, you would have thought that all professional baseball would have had extended their netting, but that wasn't the case. I still found between 70 and 80 teams at the end of 2023 that still had not extended their netting past the end of the dugouts. In 2023, Peoria didn't even have netting above the dugout, so they were like the worst of the worst. The video certainly shared with the world that you don't want to sit in any section like that. Well, Peoria was worse than all of the others, and I was like, "Hey." So I found an attorney, and we filed, and we were in court from July of '23 to July of '24, and that cost money, and we made some noise. The Peoria Chiefs had to hire lawyers, and they had to defend their, position, whatever that may have been. We came at it. We had 3 different strategies, which we incorporated into the complaint, and we went a few rounds in court, and then we withdrew because it was costing me money to keep my lawyer going, and we weren't gonna get the results we were looking for is what my lawyer advised me, saying, "I think we took it to where we needed to go." I was like, "Fine." So, for a full year, and I've been also asked by people to find lawyers. A woman in Tennessee, she had serious damage, and one of my New York lawyers knew somebody in Tennessee, and I hooked her up with a lawyer, and I'll probably be following up on that. That was a few years ago. We had some calls. This woman had $100,000 worth of facial damage. Yick. But, the woman who I'm connecting to in LA, she doesn't decide what she's going to do, if she's going to potentially sue or not, but that'll be up to her. I said to her if she could, if she wants to, she has options. It's not always easy to file. Some people just want to feel better. The people that we met along the way, victims, they're not necessarily proactive. After sharing their experience with us, they really don't want to talk about it anymore. So we're very happy that they're at least going on the record. Brendan and I are producing our first book right now. We're excited about that. This is a little known case. We don't have it displayed on the website. About 8, 9 years ago, ESPN game, major league team, a bat goes into the stands and hits the mom and the kid. She's waiting to go to a seat, and you could see the baby hanging on the parent's strap holder on her chest. And this team acted very bad. They did not come to the kid's aid. They retreated. This family had to deal with this crisis all by themselves. They didn't have billionaires and their connections to doctors making sure that this baby grew up properly. The baby ended up growing up nonverbal, and the plaintiff's side said it was because of that. Nobody in the country knows about this case, Andrea, but we do. Brendan ended up doing work to help them prepare for their case, which ended up being settled, and it was 8, 9 years later. Why was this even made to go to court? Why would this team say, "Of course what happened to you will never, ever happen to anyone else, and of course you won't be in the emergency room in the middle of the night by yourselves. Our team doctor will be with you, and we'll make sure we have every neurologist on the planet come check on your baby so you have all the opinions of the experts." That wasn't the case. This family fended for themselves. They were on GoFundMe a few years later. MLB is definitely the culprit here. Our words are gonna be jumping off the pages, and we believe the 99 percenters, people that never ever thought this was an issue, they're gonna realize, as Brianna was sharing earlier in the recording, that they're gonna put it 2 and 2 together, that that could have been their experience. And, like, why the heck we could have been there the day after or the day before or a week later, or a week before. And why did that family have to be all alone? And why aren't they all about prevention? And why are they making them get a lawyer? All the variables. Yes, we do control the narrative. It's our book. Brendan and I are putting together the book, and that's gonna be our first one, Andrea. And we believe hopefully that'll get people into talking about foul ball safety now. And we'll then be producing other things, all the interviews, all the reconciliation that is long overdue to all the victims that Brendan and I have become acquainted with. So it's all very exciting, and just to give you at the end of that particular case, right before trial, there was a settlement, and the lawyer that hired Brendan, he called me and he said, "Can I work with your assistant?" "Yes, of course." So they paid Brendan to prepare for trial. They got their millions and millions, and yes, the law firm representing the team in MLB, they got their millions and millions, and this child gets minimum care. He may be in a special needs class right now, Parents didn't get anything for loss, compensation for loss of work or anything like that, and we're able to incorporate into the book that we're producing a lot of details that America doesn't know about because we know the exact trial, the proceedings prior to the trial are all public record, Andrea. So we're able to incorporate a lot, and we'll see where it goes. We're in the process of that.
Yeah, Andrea, just walk us through how learning about the reality of this issue has affected how you view the game, being a lifelong fan.
It's still my favorite. It's not my favorite sport, but it's my favorite sport to watch in person, to actually go to the field and watch. So I will continue to, I won't be sending an email on my phone while I'm there, unfortunately, or I won't be scrolling the internet the entire time. I'll be paying close attention to where the balls are going and where the netting is. And even, unfortunately, maybe spreading that message to my neighbors, so maybe I have to kinda control that, and have a game plan when I go to the parks next time. So just aware, there's an awareness, there has to be an awareness more than anything, but I'll still go, but it's scary. I'm scared now. Like, I'm scared.
I hear you, and it's billions of dollars that are available that leaves us in the dark ages. Billions and billions, and an institution that prides themselves on being wholesome and the national pastime. Well, shame on them for continuing to function as they do, but we're optimistic. We'll meet new people all the time, and it's been great, Andrea. I wanna end on a positive note, and we really want to thank you for being part of this experience with us. And we'll do it again soon, everyone.